Howdy my totally as always tubular gamers, and we're back with, you guessed it, another ranking video. And today we're doing a ranking video I've wanted to do for a long time. Today we're talking about Guitar Hero. Yes, Guitar Hero, the rhythm game series that took not only gaming but the entire world by storm in the mid to late 2000s. Now I know we're almost 20 years now from the mid 2000s, which is scary, but if you were alive in the mid to late 2000s, I'm sure you can remember just how big Guitar Hero was. Like, it was massive. Now, I was still just a kid and growing up in the mid-2000s, but even I can easily recall just seeing Guitar Hero 3 and World Tour all over the place. I even remember a bunch of people I knew who were not even gamers were getting Guitar Hero just to play it. It was like that big of a deal, and looking back, Guitar Hero is one of the most influential games of the 2000s, and is easily the most successful, iconic rhythm game series of all time. While I know Guitar Hero isn't exactly popping off these days, there hasn't been a new game in like 10 years, and I doubt we'll see a new one anytime soon, you cannot deny the legacy that Guitar Hero left. And it's really crazy to see the cultural impact that Guitar Hero left on not only so many people, but the gaming industry, the music industry. It's crazy. The series got started all the way back in 2005 on the PS2, and they would release Guitar Hero 2 and 3 in subsequent years, and after Guitar Hero 3, the series really just exploded and became a gold mine. Then they released a bunch of Guitar Hero games over a short couple of years, and a number of Guitar Hero competitors like Rock Band showed up as well, and finally the market actually got really oversaturated with these games, to the point that Guitar Hero was put on hold. They would bring it back a couple years later with Guitar Hero Live, but it never really hit the same, and it was just kind of a bust, and we haven't heard a peep from Guitar Hero since Live, and I don't think we'll be hearing anything anytime soon. But those golden years of Guitar Hero, like 2006 to like 2009, it was just something to be a part of if you like Guitar Hero. You had so many games coming out for so many consoles, man, it was a time. So Guitar Hero, if it isn't clear by now, is a rhythm game series where you have a plastic guitar in your hands and you have to press corresponding buttons when they line up on the screen, that is, and you will have to strum. There's a number of different variants between all of these games, but that's the general gist. Guitar Hero World Tour and On added drums and a microphone as well to compete with Rock Band, but the series really is known for its guitar gameplay, hence, you know, the name. So yeah, ranking every Guitar Hero. There's a lot of Guitar Hero games, so this is probably going to be a long one, so buckle up, strap in, get some food, whatever you need to do. We're looking at them worst to best. We're going to give them all little reviews, do a lot of comparing, contrasting. I'll be sharing my thoughts, my memories, some feelings I have on these games. I will not be looking at Band Hero or DJ Hero, just Guitar Hero. Now with Guitar Hero, there are a few things I want to point out. I am not musically inclined in the slightest. I do not know how to play an instrument. I don't know how to read music. If you gave me a real guitar, I couldn't even do Smoke on the Water. I am no good at music in real life. I'm not very good at Guitar Hero either. I play on like medium, and even sometimes I struggle with that. So if you see any footage on any of the harder difficulties, it's clearly not mine, and I'll give a nice shout out to who it belongs to. I'm also not a Guitar Hero wizard or pro. I didn't play the shit out of all of these games. I'm pretty casual with all of these games outside of a select few that I really did play a lot of. And the last thing to note, since all these games are very similar to each other, one of the big things I'm ranking these games based off of is the music selection, and music is very, very subjective. Obviously, the gameplay, the modes, the general content are going to play big factors in the ranking, but the music selection is as well, and my tastes are not going to be the same as yours. So let me know down below what your ranking looks like, your favorite Guitar Hero, some of your favorite songs. I love to read the comments on all this stuff. Like, share, comment, sub if you like ranking videos. We're doing plenty here. This intro's gone on long enough, but I really wanted to give a nice meaty intro to set the scene. Now, out of all the Guitar Hero games, out of the shitty mobile game, what is the worst Guitar Hero game? And so here we have Guitar Hero Smash Hits releasing in 2009. Now, Guitar Hero Smash Hits doesn't inherently have anything terrible about it. The gameplay isn't unredeemably bad or anything about that. The gameplay is actually quite good. The thing about Guitar Hero Smash Hits is it's not an original game at all. It's the definition of a cash-in. It's a prime example of a soulless cash grab. The game has the gameplay of Guitar Hero World Tour, so you know there's the guitar, the bass, the drums, and the vocals. But the music selection is just previous games' music, so there's 48 tracks in this game, but all of them are from Guitar Hero 1, 2, Encore Rock the 80s, 3, and Aerosmith. There are no new songs here. They really just reused all the music from the old games and put them all together with World Tour's gameplay. Some of these songs are new in a sense that they do actually have the original studio master recording to them rather than a cover band from like Guitar Hero 1 and 2, but yeah, there's not a single new song here. The presentation and the gameplay and the aesthetic and all of that is basically exactly the same as the previous couple Guitar Hero games, and it really feels like they just needed something on the shelf. Really what they did was they just exposed how oversaturated the market was becoming with these rhythm games and Guitar Hero games. Like, there is no reason for this game to exist. There is zero reason for it to exist, and the fact that they sold it for $50 like gets it at the bottom place of this list. They basically released this game as a new game when they damn well knew there wasn't a single new song to it, and the gameplay is, again, exactly the same. Like, yeah, I guess it's cool they added, drum and mic support to some of the older songs that didn't have it, but these songs very well could have just been DLC for any of the other Guitar Hero games. They didn't need to make it its own game, and with that in mind, I'm giving this game a nice big thumbs down. And so here we have the last Guitar Hero game, Guitar Hero Live, releasing in 2015. So this game served as a reboot to Guitar Hero, being the first new entry in a couple years after Activision really just oversaturated their own market with way too many games. And they were just kind of testing the waters again with Guitar Hero, seeing if people were interested maybe a couple years later. Pretty obvious what ended up happening. Now, Guitar Hero Live, looking back, yeah, there's a reason I don't think many people took to the game. Like, people were still kind of burnt out on Guitar Hero. They weren't ready for more yet. I think if they had tried maybe a couple years later, people would be more interested into it. But another reason people weren't interested in this game is the guitar, the controls, the gameplay, and the lack of compatibility with the old stuff. See, they introduced a new guitar with a new adapter and a new gameplay style. It actually is different from all the other Guitar Hero games. Instead of the 5-fret layout, it is now a 6-button rhythm game, and I remember the first time I tried this and I went, what the fuck, this is different. This is not the same as the Guitar Hero I've known for almost 10 years. Like, I kind of understand why they changed it. It was a reboot, they wanted to do something a little different, but at the same time, why would you change it? Like, it was so integral to Guitar Hero's identity, this gameplay, how it played, how the guitar worked. Like, no, I didn't like this at all. I still don't like this. What the hell? Why did they change it? Like, the gameplay, unsurprisingly, is nowhere near as fun as the other Guitar Hero games, and it's like, if the core gameplay isn't good, then does the set list or the modes or any of that really matter all that much? So when it comes to the set list, the game launched with 42 songs, and I mean, it was an alright selection. They did add, a ton of songs through the Guitar Hero TV mode. However, the game has since gone offline, meaning you can't actually play a majority of the music in this game. And that final set list before it went offline was actually pretty awesome. There was over 200 songs, and now we're just back to the original 42. And all I can say is physical media forever. By taking this game offline, they really took away 92% of the music from this game, which is pretty ridiculous. So the game had two modes, Guitar Hero Live and Guitar Hero TV. Guitar Hero Live is the game's main career mode, and it plays pretty much what you would expect from a Guitar Hero single player. There is FMVs in the background, which was an interesting decision. It really wasn't anything special, but it's all you can actually play anymore, since, like I mentioned, Guitar Hero TV doesn't even go online anymore. It was this constantly updating, evolving just kind of ecosystem where they would add new music, and you'd be able to buy microtransactions and play through a bunch of songs, and they'd play the music video or like a live concert version of a song. It was actually cool. It was actually kind of cool, and it was a decent alternative to DLC, even if there were microtransactions, but doesn't matter now, it's been taken offline, so goodbye. There's multiplayer, but even that feels limited also. It's just guitars, no drums, no mic, no any of that. You can't use any of your old guitar. And so with everything I've mentioned, is it really a shocker that the game was a bust and didn't do that well and Activision ended up canceling it? No, it's not a surprise at all. This game has way too many things going against it, and I don't think anybody should be playing this game in current year. There's not even much to play anymore. It's pretty freaking lame that 92% of the game's soundtrack is gone and unplayable because you needed an internet connection. You really couldn't just add it to the game. Nah, OG Guitar Hero games forever. This new one, I say new, but the game's like 10 years old, just never did it for me, not back then, and certainly not now. Do not even bother. And so here we have Guitar Hero Encore Rock the 80s, releasing in 2007 for the PS2. This would be the last Guitar Hero developed by the original developers, Harmonix. Now, when this game came out, people were just kind of scratching their head. It wasn't Guitar Hero 3, and it felt more like an expansion to Guitar Hero 2. The game is exactly, and I really do mean exactly the same as Guitar Hero 2 when it comes to its controls, its feel, its menus, like the user interface is even exactly the same. You could easily convince someone that this is Guitar Hero 2. The only thing that really separates it from a visual standpoint is the aesthetics. It is all 80s aesthetic, but even then it looks like they just reused all the models and stuff from Guitar Hero 2 and threw some really basic 80s aesthetics on it, and that's it. I heard someone say this game looks like a mod, and you know, they're right. It really does look like a mod for Guitar Hero 2. Like, the 80s aesthetic, it just doesn't look very good. It doesn't look like they really tried all that much. Now, when it comes to the music selection in this game, it's like, I like 80s music. I really do actually love 80s music, but this game only has 30 songs, and a majority of them are covers. Some of them aren't even great covers, and I don't know, it just doesn't really do all that much for me. You know, I didn't grow up in the 80s. I did listen to a lot of 80s music growing up since my parents are from there, but yeah, the soundtrack just didn't do a bunch for me. There's a bunch of good songs here though, like Ain't Nothing But a Good Time, Balls to the Walls, Because It's Midnight, Holy Diver, I Ran, I Wanna Rock, Play With Me, Police Truck, and What I Like About You from Shrek 2, which is confusing because Shrek 2 is not from the 80s. Anyway, I think Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s, not a great name by the way, is pretty mid, and you know, in the grand scheme of Guitar Hero is very forgotten. It came out right before Guitar Hero 3, which is what everyone was waiting for. It had a pretty meh track list with only 30 songs, most of them are covers, some of them aren't even great, and it was just way too close to Guitar Hero 2. Like, come on, you'd be surprised how far a different user interface will take you. But even for my Guitar Hero fanatics, I don't think this one's really worth playing. And so here we have a 3-for-1. We have the Guitar Hero On Tour series. That is Guitar Hero On Tour, Guitar Hero On Tour Decades, and Guitar Hero On Tour Modern Hits. These are all the handheld Guitar Hero games, and I have them all together because while I was making this list, I noticed that every single time I made it, I had all three of these games back to back to back, and I was like, you know what, at this point, I'm gonna just put them all together. Now obviously Guitar Hero was popping off, they wanted to get as many games out as they could, so the DS, you know what, they were going to find a way to make it work, and the DS, it was like the best selling handheld at the time, so you know, why wouldn't you get Guitar Hero on it? I remember I actually got the first Guitar Hero on tour for my birthday in 2008. I was really into Guitar Hero, I was excited to play it on the go, and you know, all these years later, Guitar Hero on tour for DS, it's an interesting, fascinating game. In fact, really all three of them are. They are the only games that I know of on the DS that actually really utilize the Game Boy Advance slot. So if you are unaware how this game worked, it was very interesting. You would actually get this grip that would come with the game, and you would plug the grip into the Game Boy Advance slot of the DS, and you would hold the DS like a book, and on the grip were the guitar buttons. There was only 4 versus the normal 5 since it is smaller, and then on the touch screen you would be strumming the guitar while pressing the buttons, lining them up like a normal Guitar Hero game. It was actually very creative. However, because of the reliance on the GBA port, the grip is actually incompatible with the DSi and 3DS. You need either an OG DS or a DS Lite. But outside of that, it really is Guitar Hero gameplay on the go. It's not really compromised from the main games. Obviously, you know, there's not as many songs, and it's not the best when it comes to audio quality. Each of these games have around 20 to 30-ish songs, and I won't mince words here. The track lists, they're not very good in this game. The original On Tour, the set list, it's just not very good. There's not a lot here. The Decades one is a little better, and then the Modern Hits one, it's actually pretty decent. But it is painful to see how this game is called Modern Hits, and remembering when all this music was modern and now it's considered classic and is nearly 15 years old. At least all three of these games did have, like, you know, little single player campaigns you'd play through where you play through all the songs. I remember Modern Hits actually had like a real campaign, and there was actually these like missions you'd get called fan requests, and these were hit and miss. I'm pretty sure you could even do local play with these games and face off. Look, I've talked enough about the Guitar Hero DS games. They have very limited availability since you do need a DS or DS Lite. I remember my hand hurt as a kid when I'd play for more than like 20 minutes. I'd probably get arthritis or carpal tunnel from playing nowadays. And the set lists are middling to bad. And so with that in mind, you know, I can't recommend it, but it is still a novelty, and it's great to see how creative they got to put Guitar Hero on the DS. And so here we have the original Guitar Hero coming out on the PS2 back in 2005, developed by Harmonix and published by Red Octane. This really is the game that got the series started. While this certainly wasn't the first guitar rhythm game, it was the biggest at the time, and obviously it started a very big franchise. The gameplay was a bit similar to Guitar Freaks, another guitar-based game, but this gameplay really had not been seen by the masses and was considered very fresh for the time. It had a great gimmick going for it with a really good control scheme, and it was really easy to pick up and play, but of course very, very hard to master. And it's kind of crazy how from like Guitar Hero 1 even, the core gameplay was established here. It wasn't perfected here, but it was established here of what the gameplay would be like. Now, Guitar Hero 1, I don't have a ton of experience with this game. I played it a little back in the day, but unfortunately, it's a really big pain in the ass to play the game nowadays. The game doesn't have any kind of calibration to account for like HD TV, so unless you've got a CRT, like this is just a pain in the ass to play. You can try on an emulator with buttons, but I mean, if it's not the guitar, what's the point? I unfortunately do not have any guitars that work with the PS2. They are getting rather expensive, and I do not have a CRT to try this on, so it does not look like I will be playing much more of the original Guitar Hero. But from what I played way back in the day, it seemed fine enough, and it seemed like Guitar Hero, but a little crustier and a little rougher around the edges, but it was still fine. It was still that gameplay you know and love. When you look at the music list, it was actually pretty decent here. There's around like 45 songs, and I'm gonna cut this game some slack. It was the first in the series. You gotta cut it some slack. It is worth mentioning though that like all of these are covers of the songs rather than the actual songs. I mean, that has its pros and cons. It definitely adds to that more like indie feel, but I'd rather just have the original music. It plays into the games like Campaign, where you're a cover band trying to get famous. This seems like a more than cool enough concept for a campaign. I'm kind of sad I'm never really going to get to play through it unless something changes. The presentation, it really also seemed pretty budget for the time, which is kind of funny to look back on. Look, the original game, it's a classic. It started one of the most influential video game series of all time, and nobody can take that away from it. It's just in the modern day, it's kind of hard to play. Still, I'd rather play this game than Guitar Hero Live or any of those DS games. I'm not going to get carpal tunnel or arthritis trying to play this game, so it's got that going for it at least. It's a classic. And so here we have Guitar Hero Van Halen releasing in 2009. Now this is part of those Guitar Hero games where they were based on just one band, which was always an interesting decision, and they chose Van Halen. And you know, I love Van Halen, but even I can admit this game, it ain't so hot. The gameplay is based off Guitar Hero World Tour, which is weird because Guitar Hero 5 had already come out by the time this game came out. The gameplay, I mean, it's fine enough. It's Guitar Hero, it's what you expect. It's really the set list that really just has me scratching my head. The set list is just bad. The game has 25 songs from Van Halen, and they're all taken from the David Lee Roth era of the band. See, if you're unfamiliar with Van Halen, there's actually a couple eras of the band, and one of them, really one of the most popular eras, is with Sammy Hagar. There is 0 songs from the Sammy Hagar era. So it really feels like that an integral part of Van Halen's history and library is just missing. It's just not here. Sammy Hagar's not there. A bunch of the Van Halen songs I love, some of my favorite ones, are just straight not in the game. So it's like, well, why even make the game if you can't have all the Van Halen songs? And so what they did to make up for it is they threw in 19 other songs that are, I guess, sort of like Van Halen, kind of inspired. I don't know really what the logic was behind adding all of these. And I mean, it's okay. There's some decent ones here like Painkiller by Judas Priest. But yeah, the lacking soundtrack really doesn't help this game. I'm guessing it was some egos, some licensing issues, and probably a whole lot of money that stopped this game from being as good as it was. And you know, if it had like a ton of Van Halen, this probably could have been one of the better ones. Unfortunately, it's just kind of it exists. If you like some Van Halen, you'll be happy with this, but if you love Van Halen, you're going to be disappointed not all the music's here. But, I mean, if you like that Guitar Hero gameplay, you got more of it here, you got some new songs, and I mean, you could certainly go worse than this one, but I don't know if I'd recommend this game. And so here we have Guitar Hero Aerosmith releasing in 2008. This was the first Guitar Hero game to be centered around just one band. I actually remember getting this game back when it came out on the Wii, and I actually still even have the guitar nowadays. It's the only guitar I actually have left. So this game really is an expansion to Guitar Hero 3. It plays exactly the same as Guitar Hero 3, and it even looks basically the same as Guitar Hero 3, just with Aerosmith people instead of, you know, those custom characters from Guitar Hero 3. With that in mind, the gameplay is great. I mean, it's that awesome classic Guitar Hero gameplay you know and love. The biggest thing about this game is, like the title implies, it's really focusing on Aerosmith. 70% of the music is Aerosmith. They have a ton of Aerosmith. The other 30% are songs that have been influenced or opened for Aerosmith. And I think the soundtrack is actually pretty good. I won't lie, it was this game that really got me into Aerosmith, and ever since this game I've been a fan and will probably be a lifelong fan of Aerosmith, but I think the soundtrack is actually pretty solid. I will say though, I think everyone's enjoyment's really going to depend on how much you like Aerosmith. If you don't like Aerosmith, you're just not going to like this game very much straight up, but if you love Aerosmith, you'll like it. The career mode was actually pretty cool. It went through the history of Aerosmith, it had a bunch of like interviews, and it really just went through the ups and downs of their career, and it was cool to see, and I learned a lot from it. Unfortunately, something else I remember is that the fam picked it up like the day it came out, and then we played it all day and actually beat it. It was only a couple hours long. It is not a very long game, and you know, we had some fun in the multiplayer for like a week or two, and then after that we didn't really play much of this game. We actually just kind of went back to Guitar Hero 3. And then World Tour was out shortly after that, and that's what we ended up moving to. And so Aerosmith, yeah, it just kind of got lost in the shuffle and forgotten, but I mean, hey, like I said, if you love Aerosmith, this is a must play. Otherwise, you know, if you like Guitar Hero and haven't tried this yet, I think it's worth trying. Otherwise, you should probably focus on one of the bigger numbered titles. And so here we have Guitar Hero Metallica releasing in 2009. So this game, as the title implies, was centered around Metallica, which I think is a great band to do a Guitar Hero game about. Like, it makes more sense than Aerosmith, but yeah, it's just a great choice for a band. And this game, you know what? It slaps. Out of all the Guitar Hero games that are based off just one band, Metallica is the best, like easily. The game does have the gameplay of World Tour, so it brings in the bass guitar, the drums, and the vocals even. And I think the gameplay is more than solid enough. If you like World Tour's gameplay, you're gonna like the gameplay here. So when it comes to the soundtrack, there are 49 songs in this game, 28 of them are by Metallica, and this really is some of Metallica's best. Like, Metallica slaps, and this soundtrack just slaps also. The other 21 are their, quote, personal favorites and influences from over the years, and I think it actually creates a pretty good soundtrack. And this is just an awesome heavy metal soundtrack, not just for all the Metallica stuff, but there's a bunch of great heavy metal here, like Motorhead, like Alice in Chains, like Judas Priest. Like, it's just a banging soundtrack, and it's awesome. So like Aerosmith, this game kind of goes through a history of Metallica. It does not have them going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because that hadn't happened yet, which is just kind of funny to look back on. But yeah, it goes through the band's history, and I'm going to just say this game is hard. This is like the hardest of the Guitar Hero games. They said they wanted this game to be hard to, quote, match the ferocity of their music. And you know, when you hard, you hard. This game, it is hard. At least the career mode is not as short as Aerosmith's. It is a little longer. Another thing worth noting is progression is a little different in the career mode, but really if you just play through all the songs, you're going to be just fine. The user interface is a little different from World Tour also to make a little more sense, be a little cleaner, and you know, this game just slaps. This is one of the better Guitar Hero games. It's a blast, and it's still really fun to play even nowadays. If you like Metallica, this is a must play. If you like heavy metal, this is kind of a must play. If for whatever reason you love Guitar Hero and haven't tried this one, I don't know what you're waiting on. It's a good one that isn't talked about all that much. And so here we have Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, also known as Guitar Hero 6, releasing in 2010. Now, out of all the Guitar Heroes, this is really like the one that I have the least amount of experience with. You see, by 2010, the family was really just not interested in keeping all these plastic guitars and drums and mic around. And I mean, fair enough, we weren't really playing with these anymore. We had moved on to new games, and you could get a pretty penny for all the games and gear, and you know, we got rid of it all. I did try Warriors of Rock though right before we got rid of it, and I gotta say that this is one of the more interesting Guitar Hero games, and I know a lot of people really do love this game. So Warriors of Rock does share a number of gameplay elements from the previous Guitar Hero games, most notably Guitar Hero 5. It does have the band setup, you know, with guitar, bass guitar, drum, and mic, but unfortunately I never got to have that party band setting for this game in particular. So the gameplay, I mean, it's Guitar Hero, it's that classic experience, and it's still pretty fun. If you like the old ones, you're gonna like this one, simple as that. Really, the main selling point of this game was actually its single player campaign called Quest Mode. And this is actually very unique compared to all the other Guitar Hero career modes. You see, in most of the Guitar Hero career modes, you just kind of go through a number of songs, maybe there's a little story, or you go through like the history of a band, but here it was actually totally different. It had like a full-on story mode narrated by Gene Simmons of all people, and you have to save the demigod of rock from this giant creature known as the Beast. To do this, the player would actually have to recruit 8 characters for the battle against the Beast, each of whom would have their own unique power. The story, it's actually pretty cool. It's really different. I dig it. It is a little similar to Brutal Legend, which came out around the same time, I won't lie, but it is still very cool. Now, something different about the career mode is each of the characters you get actually play different from each other. See, in like every other Guitar Hero game, they were just skins ultimately for the gameplay. Here, they actually do have unique abilities that do mix up the gameplay. Now, while this is a good idea on paper, I don't think it's implemented all that well, and I'll be real, Guitar Hero just doesn't need this. The gameplay's never needed this, it doesn't really add much, and I just feel like it's not executed as well as it could be, and it probably shouldn't have just even been in the game. But you know what, it's a unique concept, and I can give them that. They tried something different, and you know, there was some mild success at least. It's whatever better than Guitar Hero Live tried. This single player campaign is like the highlight of the whole game. It's actually pretty solid, and it makes the game worth trying even nowadays. See, when it comes to the presentation and the set list, it's decent. The presentation is certainly a little lacking, you know, it doesn't really look much better than the last couple years of Guitar Hero games, but it's whatever. At least the story mode is a unique aesthetic. The set list is kind of all over the place in this game. I know some people have really loved it for just how varied it feels and how many songs there are, and other people have said it's too all over the place and it doesn't really have any focus. I fall somewhere in the middle. I think there's a lot of good songs here, but there's also a lot of artists I don't recognize and just music that I'm not huge on. But there are actually some bangers that I was not expecting in here. Stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, Blue Oyster Cult shows up, Leonard Skinner, Aerosmith comes back, Fall Out Boy's even here. Like, shit, I didn't expect Feels Like the First Time to show up in here, but I was pretty happy when it did. Like, I actually liked the soundtrack for the most part. There are plenty of songs where I go, I don't know what this is, and I don't know how I feel about the song, but there's enough good stuff that I'm like, yeah, this is worth playing for the soundtrack. I know you can also import a bunch of songs from other Guitar Hero games, so that is cool, and you can also continue to create your own music. Not that the song creation tool's ever been really any good, but you know, it exists, it's in the game, and yeah, this game exists and it's pretty good. I actually think that if you like Guitar Hero, if you like rhythm games, Warriors of Rock is worth playing. It's a solid experience, and I see why so many people like it. Do I think the other games are just a little bit better? Yes, but that does not discount how good this game is. And so here we have Guitar Hero 5 releasing in 2009. This was really when I was starting to wind down on Guitar Hero and not playing it anywhere near as much as I had in previous years, but I still did play a decent amount of Guitar Hero 5. So Guitar Hero 5 really was a continuation of World Tour and its band mechanic, you know, with the guitar, bass, drums, and mic. And something I think that is still pretty cool to this day is that the game actually is a drop-in, drop-out play where it's like, hey, you want to join mid-song, go ahead and join, and you can actually have any combination of instruments versus like, oh, it has to be just guitars or it has to be the full set, which certainly adds to the accessibility, meaning more people can join you, meaning there's more multiplayer options, meaning there's more replayability, more content, etc. When it comes to the gameplay, obviously it's very similar to World Tour, and I think that it's more than serviceable enough. I feel like I'm kind of running out of things to say about the gameplay because it's the same for pretty much all of these games, but the gameplay is good. Something kind of funny is you can actually create your own character and instrument to play with. You can make some abominations. The graphics were never particularly great in Guitar Hero, and this absolutely shows, but there was actually a number of real-life people motion captured as playable characters for this game, like Johnny Cash, and even Kurt Cobain of all people. That's an interesting choice. And there's also the song creation kit here, which it sucks. Honestly, there's apps on your phone that create songs better than this. So this game's got a decently length single player career mode that sees you going through a bunch of different songs. The reason it's decently length is because there's actually a lot of songs here. The soundtrack, I won't lie to you, it is a bit all over the place, and I know like a couple family members that loved Guitar Hero said that it was just too all over the place for them. Myself, I kind of like that it's all over the place, but I won't lie, it does feel a little disjointed. There are some bangers here though. There's 85 songs in the base game, and a lot of it was actually considered new music at the time, released like a year or two earlier. There is a fair amount of older stuff, but it's just kind of funny to see how many songs were quote new at the time. But plenty of classics make it here, like there's some Iron Maiden, there's some Bob Dylan, some Rammstein, some No Doubt, some David Bowie. What really threw me off, I remember as a kid, was that Gorillaz and Feel Good Inc. was in here, and you know, that's probably like low-key my favorite song in the whole game, but I liked how there was just this kind of random mix of songs thrown in. It was kind of like you didn't know what you were going to get next. I mean, I guess looking back, yeah, it really was all over the place, but That certainly added to the fun of it with the multiplayer, where it was like, oh, what crazy next random song was going to come on next? Who knows? And I don't know, I always thought that was fun, but I know looking back, a number of people have been like, no, Guitar Hero 5 was too all over the place, it wasn't back to Guitar Hero's roots, or yada yada yada. You know what, in the end, this is a good game, it's got great gameplay, it's got a ton of songs, there's something here for everybody. Like, I really doubt there's somebody out there who's like, I hate all of the songs in this game. I really don't believe you if you said that, but there's a ton of music here. Something's gonna hit with you. The gameplay is still solid enough. It's still that Guitar Hero experience. It's clear by this point, though, people were getting a bit tired of Guitar Hero, and, well, Activision didn't know how to quit. It's got Kryptonite from 3 Doors Down. How could you really hate it? Anyway, I recommend this game. I think it's worth playing, especially if you love Guitar Hero. And so here we have Guitar Hero World Tour, also known as Guitar Hero 4, releasing in 2008. Now, I remember I did get this game back pretty much when it came out. I actually remember getting it for Christmas, and man, that was a great Christmas because this game rules. So World Tour really changed up the formula from Guitar Hero 3 in a key area. See, to compete, I guess, with Rock Band, they added in drums, singing, and bass guitar. See, all the games before this, it was just the singular guitar. In fact, Aerosmith was the last Guitar Hero game to be just the guitar, minus live. And so yeah, they brought in drum gameplay, singing gameplay, and even bass guitar gameplay. This gameplay, though, all plays very similar to regular Guitar Hero, just, you know, with different instruments. I always really liked the drum gameplay, actually. The drum gameplay was awesome. I think it's actually a bit underrated. Like, I would say it's, you know, obviously not as good as the guitar, but it's easily the second best, and it was a ton of fun. The bass guitar was cool. Singing, I won't lie, singing's just always been kind of whack in these games and was never very good. If you want a fun piece of totally tubular Jonathan trivia, my first videos I recorded was actually with my Guitar Hero World Tour mic. Those videos are obviously on private now, but that's your piece of trivia for today. I expect a like and a comment for this, so thank you very much. Anyway, the gameplay is a bit more varied since the drums and the mic are now part of it, and you know, it was fun then, it's fun now, I'm sure. The only thing is if you really want that band party experience, you're going to be putting out a pretty penny because this is some of the most expensive plastic you'll ever be buying. It's gotten up there in price because it was actually a ton of fun. You know, I'd stay up late with my family, we'd all be playing, we had a ton of fun, I had some fun with my friends too. I won't lie with you, I always keep things 100. This is some of the most fun I've ever had in a multiplayer setting, especially in a local setting. Like, this was a ton of fun, and it's a real shame that, like, it's really hard to kind of get this together, especially in a modern setting. Like, I'm surprised this hasn't been recreated in any sense at this point. Like, I think it's been long enough. I think there'll be an audience for something like this nowadays, but yeah, ton of fun then, probably fun now. There was actually 2 campaigns here. There was a single player campaign where you would just choose an instrument, go through a bunch of songs, and then there was another one where you needed at least 2 people to play. It was like a band career mode. I thought this was really cool too, playing through all the songs. What a blast. There was some character customization here. You could create your own rocker. It was actually very similar to Neversoft's Tony Hawk series. And there was a number of real-life rockers put in here also, like Ozzy Osbourne, Billy Corgan, Sting, Ted Nugent, and even Travis Barker. But you know, all of this won't matter unless the song selection is good. And the song selection, oh, it's good in this game. It's really good. This game has 86 songs, all of which are master recordings, I will add. And there's so many good songs here. Like, there are so many good songs here. I love just a ton of the music in World Tour. Van Halen's here, Joe Satriani, Jimi Hendrix, somehow even Tool is in this. Like, the music is great in World Tour. I really do like the music. It's a great selection, and I liked it then. Listening to it now, I'm like, oh man, there was so many bangers on World Tour, man, this shit popped. World Tour, in my opinion, is one of the very best Guitar Hero games. It introduced the entire band mechanic. It actually had something new to the formula. It has a great song list. I have a ton of amazing multiplayer memories. I mean, shit, this game even went online. Like, you could have your band battle other bands online in the mid-2000s. Like, that's crazy to even think about then, let alone now. This game was great. It was great. Now, I don't usually bring this up, but it is worth bringing up here because it's so cool. The PC version of Guitar Hero World Tour has a fan-made, quote, definitive edition that adds in a bunch of music from the other Guitar Hero games and lets you have a bunch of custom characters, and this shit's hilarious. The mod is still active, and you know, if you want to play World Tour nowadays, this is a great way to play it with a bunch of kooky, crazy stuff going on, and I'm gonna just give a big shout out to them. They know what they're doing. They're keeping Guitar Hero World Tour alive. This game, it was a ton of fun when I got it for Christmas, and I love it even nowadays. This game's gonna continue to rock on. Pun intended. Oh yeah. And so here we have Guitar Hero 2 releasing initially in 2006 for the PS2, but also the 360 in 2007. So for this game, they really went, well, how do we make Guitar Hero better? We just add more, and they added more, and the game really was the game that set the entire series on fire. It really set the whole genre on fire. The game was immediately just a huge hit. People were flocking to Guitar Hero, and I remember this is when I first heard about it, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And you know, Guitar Hero 2, all these years later, it still slaps. Guitar Hero 2 absolutely still slaps, and it's a great game. When it comes to the gameplay, they did make it smoother, and they made it more in line with what you expect from Guitar Hero games nowadays. While the original game, you know, it had the formula and it established everything, this game perfected the gameplay. This is what the Guitar Hero gameplay would be going forward, with the hammer-on and pull-off functionality improving, and the point systems improving as well. Like, this is what the gameplay of Guitar Hero would be going forward, because it's just awesome. It's one of the best rhythm gameplay loops like ever. It's still really fun even nowadays. It was great 15 years ago, and it's still good now. It's addicting, it's fun, it's challenging, and ultimately it's hard to master, and you feel like a freaking G when you pull off a bunch of notes perfectly. Like, you feel awesome. This game rewards you, and it is just a ton of fun, man. The game is a full-length career mode. You get to start a band, you even get to name it, you get to choose your character, and I mean, these characters are kind of funny to look at nowadays. And then you just go through a bunch of songs and rock out. The career has a pretty decent length to it as well. But how's that song list? How's the soundtrack? Is it even any good these days? Oh yeah, it's still a classic, it's still great, it's still bops and bangs and fucks. The song list, oh, it's just so great. It's so great here. I won't lie to you, most of the songs are covers still. Most of the songs here are by cover bands, and some of them aren't amazing. It's not as good as the original, but a majority of them, they're more than fine enough, they're more than serviceable enough, and a few of them you could totally convince me it's not a cover band. The game has around 60 to 75 songs base game, and there were some DLC on the Xbox version. And the songs they chose for this game, oh, there's so many good ones. There is so many good songs here from so many amazing bands. Like, it's awesome. Killing in the Name of, Last Child, Life Wasted, Madhouse, Sweet Child of Mine, Them Bones, War Pigs. Like, there are so many good songs in this game. There's a shit ton of good songs. Just about every song is great here. They're all fun to play through, and they're even great to listen to. Like, damn, Guitar Hero 2, it really hit hard with the soundtrack. Like, it was not messing around. They pulled no punches on this one. Like, the soundtrack is great. I really like the song list. It's one of the reasons this game is so high on the list, and one of the reasons it's aged so well is that the gameplay's still fun, soundtrack, it's still really good. This game had really fun multiplayer also that would be replicated like 10 times over for the next couple of years, but you know, when it showed up here, it was still fresh, it was fun, and it was a great time. And like I've said, it was Guitar Hero 2 that really blasted the whole series off into the stratosphere and got it into superstardom. It's because this game was just great. The presentation, it's kind of funny, it wasn't actually that great. I mean, it was alright for the time, but Guitar Hero and graphics just never really have gone all that well together. But you know what's gone well together? The gameplay, the music, the synergy. This game, it's got some vibes, it's got a good atmosphere that really none of the other games have had, and it's one of the best Guitar Hero games of them all. It's one of the best rhythm games ever made, and if you like Guitar Hero, this game is a must-have. Shit, if you like rhythm games, this game is a must-have. This game is just superb. Guitar Hero 2, what a great game. But here we are at the end of our journey with the best Guitar Hero game in my opinion, Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock, releasing in 2007. Now, Guitar Hero 3 is a legendary game and is not only my favorite Guitar Hero game, but my favorite rhythm game of all time. Like, this was the Guitar Hero game that I got the most into. This is the Guitar Hero game that really made me a huge fan of the series and made me go and play all of those other Guitar Hero games, because this game was so damn good. This game really just had it all. It's like the best-selling Guitar Hero game, and it's the most looked fondly back on with Guitar Hero 2 for a reason, because this game just fucking ruled. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, they weren't trying to reinvent the wheel or change anything really from Guitar Hero 2. They knew they already kind of perfected the formula in Guitar Hero 2, and this game just kind of continues that. The gameplay, it's like the best in the whole series. Like, I mean, all of these games play very similar to each other, but I don't know, just the way Guitar Hero 3 always hit, it just always hit different. The game had a pretty meaty career mode, seeing you go through 8 tiers with 42 songs total. There was actually a bunch of boss fights in here. Like, I love the career mode of Guitar Hero 3. I've played through it multiple times. Like, when I got the game, I played through it, and then I remember I played through it like a week or two later, and I probably played through it at least 3 times. I remember really enjoying the boss fights. I thought they were really cool. You actually do go up against Tom Morello, Slash, and then Lou the Devil for The Devil Went Down to Georgia, which has always been a favorite of mine. No, this career mode, it slapped. It's like the best of any of the Guitar Hero career modes. Warriors of Rock is up there. It's either Warriors of Rock or this one, because those career modes are really good. But this game doesn't have those weird abilities. It's just straight up Guitar Hero, and it's just a ton of amazing songs. And you know what? Let's talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack of Guitar Hero 3 is the best soundtrack in Guitar Hero history. In my opinion, it's not even close. Guitar Hero 3, every single song is amazing. It is like the perfect soundtrack. I don't know how a game soundtrack can be perfect or a song list can be perfect, but it's this. It's whatever this game did. That's what it is. It is untouchable. It is legendary. It is iconic. It is just beautiful. I have no other word for it other than beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful, amazing soundtracks to any piece of media like ever made. There are so many amazing songs. There is 79 songs in this game, and it just is banger after banger after banger. Like, it starts with Slow Ride, which is always going to be super iconic for me because of that, and then it just goes from one amazing song to the next. I would be here all day talking about the amazing soundtrack, stuff like Barracuda, Black Sunshine, Bulls on Parade, Cult of Personality, Even Flow, Helicopter, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Cool Thing, Lay Down, The Metal, Miss Murder, Mississippi Queen, Raining Blood, Paint It Black, Rock All Night, Rock You Like a Hurricane, Same Old Song and Dance. Like, I could be here all day. Oh, and how could I forget, like, the hardest song ever, Through the Fire and the Flames. I remember back on the playground, kids would always talk about, oh, I beat Through the Fire and the Flames. Oh, I didn't miss any notes. And I'd be like, bullshit, you didn't miss any notes. Those kids were full of shit back then, and I knew it then. But nowadays, maybe they were onto something. Maybe they were cooking. But you know what? The soundtrack, it's just fucking beautiful, man. I got nothing else to say about it. I get just emotional thinking about it. I remember my dad burned a CD with all the music in the game on it so we could listen to it in the car and at home. Like, we just were so into Guitar Hero 3 soundtrack. It's just stupid good. Just like the rest of the game. It was so good. It was untouchable. The multiplayer was great. The career mode was great. The presentation was very different from Guitar Hero 2 since Neversoft took over, and in my opinion, it was the best aesthetic the series ever saw. The presentation was fine for what it was, but the focus, man, the gameplay, the music, it's just untouchable. Really, I find it hard to even think of the idea of another Guitar Hero being my top spot that isn't Guitar Hero 3. It just doesn't compute with me. Like, even when I've heard other people say, oh, my favorite's like Guitar Hero 2 or Warriors of Rock, I'm just like, that's funny. That's a weird way to say Guitar Hero 3, but okay. The amount of memories and nostalgia I have with this game, way more than any of the other Guitar Hero games. Like, I really do love Guitar Hero 3 when we got it. That's all the family wanted to play. That's all we wanted to listen to for weeks, months, years even. Guitar Hero 3, just a legendary game that'll live really deep in my heart and memory, and I'll never forget Guitar Hero 3. It's just that good. And that's how we're ending today's video. If you are going to play just one game from this list, you're going to play Guitar Hero 3. It's just amazing. If you like Guitar Hero or rhythm games or ever wanted to try the series and see what all that hype was about like 20 years ago, this is the one to play. Alright, that's it for today. I know this video went on quite a bit longer than I anticipated. That's a pretty long runtime, so if you made it to this part of the video, please subscribe and share with someone you know. Comment cement as in what's on the ground if you made it to this part. I'll know you're a real one and you'll get a heart. Thank you so much for watching. I've wanted to make this video for quite a while, and I'm glad that I've got a platform to talk about Guitar Hero and just my love for this series. And you know, with all that said, I hope everyone has a good rest of their day, good holiday, weekend, whatever's the closest near you. Bye-bye now.